right. Okay. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, David Todor, to our show, Unschooling the Mind. I'm really excited to have you here today. Thank you for coming.
Tasha, thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's like, I have to say that it's been a long time coming that I've been waiting for the men to rise. And you probably have since the beginning. And there's definitely been a few wonderful men that have kind of stood up during 2020 or at that time. But the majority of men are, kind of at the hockey games, I suppose. So, especially up here in Canada. So I'm so excited because along with yourself in the next 3 months, I have this lineup of men who are coming out and using their voice and bringing light to some of the egregious things that are going on with our children and what's happening here in Canada. And obviously this is a worldwide agenda that we can get into, but you have really been an advocate for the sexual gender ideology curriculum that's being kind of pushed down our throats here up here in Canada and worldwide. And I found you through a post that went viral of you speaking at the Waterloo District School Board. So that's kind of how we met and our background. So why don't you start with telling us a little bit about how you got to this place right here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of an interesting story. And thank you so much. I do encourage men and parents in general. There's a lot of women that I work with who are really passionate, and I'm really happy. And of course, I heard that, men need to rise up more. So, you're not the first person to say it, but I do have kids. And I cannot tolerate this kind of behavior when they are being questioned about their sexuality.
Mm.
So a couple of years ago, there was a teacher named Carolyn Burjowski. She spoke at the Waterloo District School Board, and she brought up a couple books that were sexually inappropriate for kids. And the Waterloo District School Board, they removed that video of Carolyn Burjowski, and they put out this online statement saying that they removed it because they didn't want to cause harm, etc. And I don't normally keep up with the Waterloo District School Board, but this post on Instagram just kind of, when I saw it, I had to check out the video. So I looked for the video, and when I saw the video of what they did to Carolyn, I just had to see for myself what kind of books they have. And that's how I got started on this journey. And they were also surveying minors on their sexuality, and they sent out this survey, a couple surveys, and they were asking my kids to disclose their sexuality. And of course, I'm not okay with that. And the way they did this survey is to the parents, they put out one set of information, but in actuality, it was completely different. And they were saying they were looking for kids grade 4 and up, but on the survey, they had age 4 and up. So they were clearly soliciting minors as early as age 4. And that's not cool. That's not good behavior. And I don't think it's their business to know what the sexuality of minors is. And the more I looked into the school board, the more I found this focus on them, on just wondering what the sexuality of kids and constant celebrating the sexuality, constant having discussions. They invite organizations and groups to talk to kids about sexuality. And these organization and groups, they also have medical affiliations as well. So they'll provide anything from therapy to medical therapy to surgery therapy, as well as what they call medical affirmation. And these groups are being invited to speak to the kids in the school. And not only this, but they also have other groups that come into the school, like the Be Real movement, I believe it's called, and they have gear like funnels for the girls to pee standing up. They transition breast binders, etc. And these are the kinds of groups that are being invited to empower the kids sexually. And by empower, like use heavy quotations when I say that, because these people, parents don't know about this, and these people are highly, highly interested in the sexuality of minors.
It's unbelievable. And you're talking elementary, are you?
Yes,
Yeah, your
yes.
children are at the elementary school. So, I'm sure that you get this a lot too. A lot of people say, well, this isn't happening at my school. well, this isn't, this wouldn't be happening at my school. I love my teacher. I've got a great principal. They're against this. But this, I know a lot of this stuff from my own research were pilot projects that were first started, especially in Ontario. It's like Ontario and BC. BC has adopted every school district, all 63 have adopted the entire SOGI curriculum, the entire thing. Like,
Hmm.
and there's this correlation between I find the mandates, the medical mandates that were imposed on us in a tyrannical way even here in British Columbia, Bonnie Henry is still not allowing doctors or nurses who aren't vaccinated to work in the hospitals, and they're claiming that they have a health shortage and crisis, and they're bringing in people from out of country. So, I mean,
Hmm.
we can see the lunacy in that, and the same thing going on in Ontario. I know that the SOGI curriculum, for example. So, for viewers who don't know what that is, that's the sexualized orientation, gender identity curriculum, but they don't call it a curriculum. It's kind of imposed and embedded throughout the school through after school clubs and the Gay Straight Alliance clubs. And I've had a lot of teachers reach out to me anonymously and tell me that like how you're speaking about these third parties that are coming in during lunch hour, during assemblies. So that way they actually can stay off the books. So a parent can't go and say, listen, I don't want my child in that health class or that SOGI class or that thing. It's really just embedded. And there's no panel. There's no panel of people that are making the decisions of what goes in the library and what materials are being used by teachers or librarians or these third party people. And so it makes it very difficult for parents to go and say, I don't want that, or point out the wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. They're incredibly sneaky. And, I believe this is a feature for them, not a flaw. The fact that they say we teach the curriculum, I wish they taught the curriculum. I wish they stayed on track. But the truth is that they don't stay on track with the curriculum. They don't teach anything about boys and girls. As a matter of fact, they teach whatever they want. And it's interesting because I remember a time when if it wasn't in the curriculum, it wasn't taught. But now, because it's not in the curriculum, it's almost an excuse for them to teach it because they can't be held accountable. It's their way of
Mhm.
not being held accountable. So they do a lot of this stuff, and they also change the language to hide things from parents. I know my daughter, she joined this club at school, and it was like an arts and crafts club. And I asked her what she did over there, and she said, we were making pride flags and stuff. And I was like, whoa, hold on. What kind of a club is this, And that's the kind of stuff that they do. They change the language on things, and they'll even say, we're doing like a health club at school, for better health. And when the types of things that they're discussing with kids and what they consider health, I mean, it's crazy. And even the books that they have in the library, like the books that I've read, that I've accessed through my 7-year-old daughter's online library account, it had like pedophilia and incest and child abuse and all that stuff. And to them, these people, they'll look at that book and they'll say, we're just bringing awareness. And what they're actually doing is, yes, now I am aware as a parent that they're abusing the kids through these books. So I suppose they are bringing awareness that they're abusing kids. And parents need to know the kind of content that they're putting in there because the books that they have in the library, these books are not talking against child abuse. These books are romanticizing child abuse, and they consider these books for children because of the language, not because of the content. The content is irrelevant, but they adjust the language to fit the content. So during my last delegation on October 16th, I believe, at the Waterloo District School Board, I read from a book, and they're talking about how to approach minors, and they're changing the language from hand jobs to handies, from anal to bummies, etc. And they're saying these books are for children. And indeed, these books, they are targeting children. Pay attention to what these people are doing. These people are not lying. These people are trying to change the language, and they're always feeling the need to educate parents and teachers. Sorry, they're feeling the need to educate teachers and leadership that when a parent calls, they can dismiss their concerns. and all these clubs, all the names, all the books, everything that they're doing, it's very subversive, it's very manipulative. And when you challenge them on it, they're going to call you the hateful one because if parents have a problem with adult content being in children's books, apparently in their mind, makes the parent hateful and phobic. And unfortunately for them, these tactics are no longer working. And we just got to call it out for what it is. These people are degenerates, and this kind of behavior is completely unacceptable around children. And any adult that wishes to have sexual conversations and romanticize sexual behavior with children, that adult needs to be in jail. That's the safe space that the adult has. And we have perfected these safe spaces, and they love safe spaces. And I think jail cells is exactly where people who wish to expose children and exploit children in sexual ways, that's where they belong.
100%. But it's interesting because it's really that these people are programmed. They're under mind control. They're in the system. With some of the laws that are changing right now, like Bill 67 of the Education Act, that's in the second reading in the legislation right now about. They're actually changing the definition of racism. They're actually saying that now it's an unconscious notion. They are actually saying that anyone who graduates through the education program to become a teacher or who wants to go up the ladder in the education system has to not only take the diversity inclusive training, has to not only agree that racism can be an unconscious notion, but for them to take that next step within their career, they have to actually push and advocate this. This is all being put into legislation behind our back while we're looking at these fires that are being set in the school. So it really is insidious, like you say. But these people actually believe that that they're doing the right thing. That's what's crazy about mind control, right? They have been told. There's a teacher who left BC recently, or a few years ago. She works with Pierre Barnes. I know I've seen her on a few podcasts. She left after COVID. And she said, when all of the sexual ideology, propaganda came up onto the school walls was when COVID, when we were in lockdown, when we weren't allowed to go in the schools. She said, if you had seen what was coming up then, you would have been alarmed. But they did it when the parents weren't allowed to go in the schools. And she said it was absolutely crazy. Now, I know that what you're talking about with the library books, people that viewers can go to exposingsoji123.com, which Pierre Barnes has done a chronological order of all of the books throughout Canada that people have, like you, have access through their kids' libraries in sequence so people can actually go look at these books and actually see what it is, because how they're getting away with this, if I'm not, because people have gone to the RCMP in Canada and the RCMP says, well, there's not much we can do. They're cartoons. It's out of our jurisdiction. So they're getting away with this because they're putting it in a way, like you said, they're changing the language, they're making it cute, they're putting it in cartoon form. So it doesn't seem like it's actual pornography. But I know in my background with psychology, that was one of the first things that we learned was that when you expose a child too early to concepts that they can't understand, whether it be around sexuality or other things, that's considered grooming if it's intentional, but it is also changing the formation of the child's brain. Like when children are not ready. And here's the crazy thing, when you do this, when your child sees things like this, they cannot be unseen, right? So now
Mhm.
you're left with the byproduct of having to explain to your child the visuals that they've seen. And I mean, you guys need to go look at some of these books. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous if you have been living under a rock and haven't seen some of the stuff on social media or people like David or myself kind of advocating around this. It's absolutely, and here's the other thing. They make us, people like you and me, sound like we're book burning prudes, you know, and we're crazy. And I listen, I'm all for children learning about sexuality, embracing the human body, understanding the parts, understanding that there's different diversities at an age appropriate time where less is, more. You don't need to be sitting down and talking about fetishes and being chained up and blowjobs and handies and making this. Like I have a 20-year-old stepson, and he was showing me the other day on Tinder what the girls do. and I'm sorry if I sound like a prude. I mean, I'm 46 years old, but like, I'm not an angel, but and I certainly don't have these grandiose ideas of some childhood where I was like, in how to write skirts. But there's this normalcy like that's occurring about sex now where it just give it away for free. Doesn't matter. Let me put my naked ass on my profile picture at 19 years old or 18 years old, right? Like it's no big deal. That's my hello, hi, here I am, right? And and it's just you can see the grooming as a parent. And I think unless you're a parent, you're not looking for it. So you don't see it. So people look at people like us and they think, oh, yeah, what are they yelling about? Whatever. But it's really diabolical in my opinion. What do you think and who do you think is truly responsible for what's happening here?
Well, just right off the bat, I just want to say, like any parent, if they're talking to somebody and they don't know the difference between a man and a woman, there's no need to trust that person's leadership, right? Because they're just having cognitive problems with the absolute basics that can be proven scientifically anywhere in the world. Like we're talking about like some serious cognitive issues. And the problem with this is that a normal person off the street, they can't come up with the stupid ideas that these intellectuals come up with to justify all this stupid behavior. I mean, you really have to be an intellectual nowadays, a modern intellectual with degrees in order to come up with the justification to push this kind of crap onto the kids. And the other thing is, we have a great person over here in Canada named Dr. James Lindsay, and he talks about it at length about Marxism in education. Now, I come from Romania, and Romania used to be communist. And what they're doing right now is they're trying to make everything a thought crime, right? And trying to make people atone for their thought crime. It's a struggle session. It's a communist struggle session, right? It's Marxist. And the problem is these people don't actually care about academics. When children go to school, they're not actually taught anything. Like they're taught how to read Marxist material, you know. But Dr. James Lindsay, he talks about this concept. A kid goes to school and he's given a math problem, something like a family hops into a van and they're going to an amusement park that is 20 kilometers away. They've driven 7 kilometers. How much longer do they have to get to the amusement park? Right? That's a pretty simple question. Everybody knows the answer. A parent wouldn't blink at that. But before they do the actual math questions, they dissect the question. So they'll talk about, all right, how many people here have families? Right? Then they'll open the subject, they'll talk about family. How many people here can't afford to go to an amusement park? How many people here think driving to an amusement park is a good idea? Right? And from this simple math question, that's basically very innocent, they're able to just indoctrinate kids about race, about sexuality, about family, and they'll open up an entire subject, and then parents wonder, why are my kids not learning anything in school? Well, because the point of learning is not academics. The point of learning is just Marxist. They want to teach kids the Marxist way, and that's exactly what's happening in the schools, and they're not upfront about it. And like you said, all of like kids are really suffering mentally from this. As a matter of fact, the director of education at our school, Jiwon Chanika, he always talks about, like these LGBTQ groups, they're higher rates of depression and suicide and anxiety, right? And to that I say, why under your leadership have these numbers grown? you know but to in their mind, these high rates of problems are not a flaw, they're a feature, because now they can justify that they actually need more. We need to try harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Mm-hmm.
harder, the more they do it, the higher the rates go, and then they feel even more justified. And if anybody says, what are you guys doing, then they just say, see, they hate me. Yeah, I mean, these people literally want a pat on the back for their degenerative behavior. right? And anybody that speaks out against them, they play the victim. They instantly play the victim and say, "See, people are hateful," and they do things that just absolutely piss parents off. These things, are this pedophilic behavior when you approach minors as early as age 4 and solicit them on their sexual preferences, right? This is not okay. And if you call them out on this stuff, they're gonna say you're hateful. You know what? I am hateful for this kind of behavior. I do not tolerate this behavior. This behavior is despicable. And these are the kinds of things that they're pushing. And the numbers of anxiety and depression and suicide, they're rising. And these symptoms are symptoms of child abuse. And they are abusing the kids psychologically at school and pushing them towards a road of medical sterilization and surgery, right? And they're saying this is going to empower you. Now your medical identity can line up with your mental identity. And this is the kind of stuff that our kids are being taught, and these are the kind of values that are being promoted right from the highest levels. Even our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, for Women's Day, he had a quote. He said, "And one more thing, trans women are real women." And it's like, come on, dude. Like, I just laugh at that. He's a fool, and it's really easy right now to tell the difference between uh these people who just have problems living in reality. They literally, you cannot talk to them because they don't even know what a man and a woman is. But they cry the victim, and they want to be leading, and they think they're victimized. Well, I'm going to give them something to be victimized about if this is how they're going to act. These people need to be held accountable, and this kind of behavior cannot be tolerated. Absolutely zero tolerance for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you go down to the basics, I don't think we have anyone in leadership that can explain what a woman or a man is, like what a woman is, not Pierre Poilievre. He's just being lined up as the next globalist puppet. That's in my opinion. And Trudeau is just marching to the globalist orders. I mean, when you start looking into who's funding these third-party programs, Planned Parenthood. Well, who started Planned Parenthood? Only Bill Gates's father and all of these globalists, right? And you've got the George Soros Open Society that's funding a lot of this. The Jennifer Prichters, the Prichters, who she's used to be a general. He used to be a general in the army, and now he's a billionaire woman. Like, just it's like it's so in our face. And then the parents try to go to speak their concerns, and they're being gaslit here. And it's happening in the States as well. But I don't know if you just saw recently, January 10th in Vernon, BC, what happened. The woman went to read, and a bunch of people went with her to the school board district to read almost a notice of liability. And they all stood up and walked out. And not only did they stand up and walk out and leave the room, okay, these are like paid public servants. They left the room, then they came back and they turned on the music so loud so that she couldn't speak, because she turned to speak to the people and finish reading what she brought to say, which was basically that you are held accountable and responsible when you take the position of leadership over our children as a man or a woman. And they turned on all the music, then they turned off the lights, then they went and tried to, like, it's almost like you're arguing with somebody who is under such thick mind control. It's like these people that go and protest, the counter protesters, the Antifa, the BLM. These people have mental health issues. They have been programmed and are being paid through some government faction of our taxpayer dollars to actually go out and disrupt the good humans, the good people, the good responsible parents of the world who are congregating to say, hey, okay, I'm not alone here. I don't like this. My spidey senses are up. Who can talk to us? Instead of them being able to rationally answer the questions that parents have, it's like a light switch turns off. It's like that rhetoric. You're a bigot. You're a transphobe. You're a climate denier. You're a hater. You know what I mean? Get them,
Hmm.
get them. Like, the orange man is bad. It's just this program, and listen, when I say the orange man is bad, I say that in jest because I don't believe any politician is on our side. And I don't think we're going to get through this with politics, but that's just my humble opinion. So let's just talk about, oh, I don't know. I wanted to bring this up too for viewers, and I know I bring this up a lot, and maybe you're new to this podcast, but in here, up here in Canada, this entire ideology, this SOGI curriculum was pushed through Parliament by a guy named Ben Levin, who was the deputy minister for Kathleen Wynne in Ontario back in 2015. There's a great picture I'm going to be posting soon of Trudeau, Kathleen Wynne, and this Ben Levin at a pride parade with their flag. So this has been in the works for a very, very long time. And this guy, Ben Levin, is a convicted pedophile. This guy, went to jail for 2.5 years, which in my opinion isn't enough, for claiming that he being caught on producing child pornography, distributing child pornography, and admitting in online chats that he had raped all three of his daughters. And, fantasized about having sex with his grandchildren who were babies. This is the degenerates, when you say degenerates, that are at the top of our leadership structures who are tabling curriculums like this. And now, from what became a pilot project, it's nationwide. It's nationwide and being inserted and pushed and rammed down our throats, and nobody has a choice. This is what we're dealing with. And down in the States, they're going off Alfred Kinsey's work, another work of predatory self-serving data, which fooled the American public into thinking that children were sexual from birth. And you've got UNESCO and the UN, which are the globalists that are pushing all of this down to our governments that are now pushing it onto us. I mean, good for you for standing up at these board meetings, but do you see any light at the end of this tunnel? Do you have a strategy? Are you working with people? Do you think you're actually going to get to a place of resolve? Like, where are you at?
Yeah. Well, let me just say first, if I didn't see these issues that you're telling me for myself, I would not have believed. I mean, they are so insane. They are so absurd. The things that these people do are so in your face. It's so hard to believe that a person would do these kind of things, and yet they're elevated to positions of leadership and they're being slapped on the wrist when they make these kind of offenses. I mean, if you speak out, you're going against the government in Canada, right? They'll just pick you up and take you straight to jail, right? And then look what happened with Tamara Lake and all these people, right? Then you have teachers like they'll absolutely drag you, right? But if you abuse minors, right, a couple of years in prison, probably a nice comfy couch while you're there too, and being protected from everybody, right? I'm sure this person probably didn't come in contact with normal prisoners, or maybe he did, who knows? But at the same rate, you get 2 years of offense. And these are the kind of values that are being promoted in Canada. We're transitioning minors, right? We're sexualizing kids. We got the MAID program, which is being opened up to people with mental issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to add mature minors. Now, I've read this all from the government website, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what they're pushing. And I cover this on my podcast on Beyond the Rift. I read right from the government website that they're looking to do this, right? I'm not making this stuff up. This stuff is so crazy that I have to see it for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got abortion as well, which is being praised as women's rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
To end the lives of kids. And we're changing the language, right? It's not a baby, it's a fetus, and we're trying to make this mental disconnect, right? Now, I do see light at the end of the tunnel because people in positions of leadership, they're getting pissed off. And there's a reason why they're censoring everything. There's a reason why they're turning up the music when it comes to these meetings and why they're throwing tantrums and acting like kids. There's a reason for this. There's a reason why they call parents phobic and bigots and they can't actually talk normally. And the reason for that is because they're getting absolutely slapped with facts and the truth, and it doesn't take a scientist to have a look at these things, to go to a school board meeting and just see for yourself the degenerates that are over there. When I showed up at the school board meeting, there's a lot of activists, men in skirts and stuff like that. These activists, They show up and they hold these trustees accountable, make sure that they're following what they need to be. And since I've started going, a lot of parents, I haven't seen that many activists because these activists that show up at the board meetings, you know, they don't like it when parents are there. And they're so emotionally fragile that they won't even show up, with parents. And that's what I encourage parents. Go and take your seat at the school board meeting and hold these people accountable. Because if parents don't hold these people accountable, the degenerate activists will hold them accountable. So I do see light at the end of the tunnel. And the way I see the light at the end of the tunnel is I look at these people and the things and the extreme lengths that they go to shut down these conversations. And right now, more than ever, people are paying attention. And this stuff is mainstream news right now. People know exactly what's happening. Parents are taking their kids out of school. Parents are homeschooling, uh, private schools. And one of the things that I'm looking right now is not only to criticize what's happening in the schools, but also to offer solutions. So we're working on opening up schools to educate. Right now, kids are not being educated. Kids are being indoctrinated in school. And I think, even the schools, they need to go back to the basics of academics and we need education, right? This is not alternative education. This is not something different. We just want to offer education because what is being offered by the state is not education. It's government propaganda. It's Marxist. I know I've been there, right? And if you read the book called The Gulag Archipelago, which is about socialism and how socialist countries behave, you're going to realize that there's no depths in which humanity will not sink to in order to silence people and to torture people. And this is the path that we're heading down at lightning speed right now. And they're not being these are not subliminal messages anymore. These are in your face statements by politicians, by Trudeau. He can't tell the difference between men and women, right? All of these things, abortion promotion, maid program, all of these things are being promoted. They're not even hiding it anymore.
Hmm.
Just from the very top levels of government, whether it's the liberals leading, we got the conservative government in Ontario. All of this stuff is taking place under their leadership. As a matter of fact, I just saw the Ottawa hospital, and there's another hospital. They opened up a gender affirmation clinic, and they're saying they're taking referrals from schools. And this is them. I'm just repeating exactly what they're saying, right? And if parents think that this is a joke and that this is a conspiracy theory, like these hospitals literally have it on their website that they're taking referrals for gender affirmation surgeries from schools. I mean, I don't know what else to say, and I do see a light at the end of the tunnel because people are getting pissed off. We got the Million March protest, and I gotta tell you, anytime these degenerates open their mouth, I let them talk because
Mm.
it's a win every time. You gotta hear them, right? And then I just laugh at whatever they're saying because honestly, they just they're just so entrenched in their belief system, and it's so easy to just absolutely slap them with the truth that they literally can't do anything. The only thing that they can do is throw a tantrum and play the victim, and I don't care about hearing it. So yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And right now, more than ever, people are speaking publicly about these issues. Parents are going to the board meetings more than ever. Parents are going and getting out on the streets. You have a podcast. I have a podcast. A bunch of people that I know also opened up a podcast, you
Hmm.
know, and
Hmm.
more than ever, I think this is a war that they cannot win. When they come after our kids, I'm sorry, but you can't win.
Hmm.
Absolutely unacceptable. So yes, I do think that we are winning, and I see they are desperate to shut parents down because they
Hmm.
have nothing to stand on. Thank you for watching. If you appreciate the work that I do, please consider supporting me financially. And if you can't support financially, I would appreciate it if you help me overcome the censorship and just share these videos with other people so they know exactly what is happening. I left a link in the description to my coffee account where you can do a one-time donation or a monthly subscription. Anything helps and your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you once again.
Hmm. Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I commend you because I have been focusing the last 4 years on just I completely abandoned the system, and I've just been focusing on building kind of like the parallel society of, you know, of the new earth with other people. Like I just immediately knew with in 2020 of May with the absurdity of the public health measures, the masking, the social distancing, that I could no longer trust these people. That teachers are supposed to be a beacon of light and knowledge, and they have failed us right there at the get-go. I had no idea about the gender stuff until, I don't know, months to a year later when I started diving into like, what is this? And it was like COVID 2.0 for me. I just, and it's like an onion. You just start unraveling one thing, you find another, you find another. You're like, what do you mean this person was the one that pushed through? It's like this has been going on for so long and we're just waking up late to the party, right? But I'm
Mhm.
happy here that you see some light at the end of the tunnel because I often want to connect with people that are actually boots on the ground dealing with these boards. Like for me, I don't have, I'm not called to do that at this time. I'm called to kind of support the ones that are leaving the system because I also believe that if 30% of us all walked out, the entire system would crumble. So I really advocate for people just to pull at them. Like it's great that we can argue with these people and push back and stuff, but I feel like the only thing that they hear is money, what affects them, their jobs, or the politicians, your votes. I mean, and in numbers, we dictate what's going on, right? So if we all said, that's enough. Kids are coming out for a calendar year until we sort all this garbage out and we make people accountable. Um, the whole system would crumble. They would have to stop in its tracks. But they rely on parents being busy, paying taxes, working two jobs, exhausted, don't have time, censorship of the news on social media. So we can't find the information. We know in the Bible, people perish for a lack of knowledge. This is what they're doing. This is a full out war. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And the things that you're saying, they're 100% correct. This is not rocket science. Parents are being overworked, right? We got inflation at an all-time high, right? And the thing is, at the end of the day, I encourage parents to do one thing, and that is spend time with their kids and participate in their own rescue. Parents need to be aware. And parents can start, if they're busy, that's fine. I would say relook at your priorities as a family and get your kids off the screens, get your kids off the tablets, off the cell phones, off the computer. Because if you're not spending time with them and if you're not filling their head with knowledge, somebody else will,
Mm,
and then you can't just shrug your shoulders and say, I don't know what happened to my child, right? When you had minimal involvement in their life as they were growing up. And, 20 years from now, when your kids have grown up and you look back and you say, well, I worked two jobs, it doesn't matter, right? Those things don't matter. The only thing that matters in the end is family and spending time with your kids and having good relationships and being there for them as they grow up. So I want to encourage parents, spend time with your kids, and participate in your own rescue. And if you're not happy with what's happening, at the very minimum, contact the school. At the very minimum, right? Write to the premier. At the very minimum, show up and vote,
mhm,
because these people who got into these positions, when I look at the votes, somebody's voting for them, right? And I know that the unions are heavily involved in this, and they're heavily involved in rallying people behind who
mhm.
they support. And these unions, they're so cringe. I can't believe they do this stuff. I just cringe inside and I die inside every time I see them release these statements. And in Ontario, the QP leader, you know, I was at a protest and he was there too, just mindlessly chanting, trans right or human rights or whatever,
Mhm,
mindless chants right. And I just looked at him. He's just such a cringy individual,
mhm,
and he looks the part too, like with the thick frame glasses. Just stay away from the kids.
Hmm.
And these unions, the reason why there was a backlash against the Million March protest is because these unions literally publicly announced that we must stand in solidarity against parents.
Well, that
And please
Zoom
sign up.
link,
Yeah.
that was um that was leaked. Now, whether on purpose or not, that whole conversation amongst the union leaders talking about how they have to fight and wear a mask so that you're not exposed and do all this stuff. I mean, this is money of people that are working people. Their money going to these unions along with the government are pushing these political pharmaceutical agendas against concerned parents. It's
Yep.
outrageous.
Yeah, to be honest, the more I look at these things, the more corruption that I see, right? Anything from medical corruption, like if the government is pushing sterilization and mutilation of children from an early age, if they're not stopping hospitals from doing this, that's corruption. We see medical corruption where individuals who undergo these affirmation therapies, you know, they will need lifelong medical assistance. They become lifelong patients who need medical care. We're talking about like constant hormones and constant medication to combat the different side effects. And we're talking about infections and all of these things. Lifelong patients. That's what these people promote. This is not empowering. This is destructive behavior. And this government is super involved in destructive behavior. Like I mentioned, all those things, including handing out drugs for this safe care,
Yeah,
safe use, all of this stuff. They change the language in a positive way. What they're really doing is they're destroying families, they're destroying individuals, and they're just completely unaccountable for this stuff.
absolutely. Right here in BC, they just actually pushed through a protocol of pushing fentanyl onto well, getting it more accessibly ready for 19 and younger, right? So that's a protocol that they've just pushed through. I mean, and then they just legalized drugs. You can walk around with fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, a certain amount in your pocket, no problem. And then they pass through the schools some pamphlets on how to keep your straw clean, right? Like, and your meth pipe, that was in Alberta. And again, this is from a third party who's come into the school to pass these along. We know last year that Planned Parenthood accidentally dropped the sex A to Z cards in middle school in Lethbridge and Regina, I believe, and the parents found them because the cards were in their kid's backpack and the little ones saw them. And I mean, it's absolutely, you wouldn't believe. I mean, I've done many videos on this, but most people have no idea the words and the descriptions of different sex acts that are in this. I mean, it's appalling. It's things I didn't even know. And this is what our kids, and I mean, some of the girls were talking about, they felt such trauma. Sorry, my kiddos. This is
No
when
worries.
you're unschooling. This is the life. They're with you all the time. Um, so the trauma that some of these girls had by these boys reading these cards and then the boys giggling and they're talking about snowballing and double penetration and threesomes and porn. Like what is going on? And I mean, even that, I mean, the fact that people didn't pull their kids right there when they learned that information, the fact that we're still trusting that this government, even though they say, okay, well, we're going to do something about that, these people are liars. These people are liars. They're trying to kill us. Like, let's look at the medical genocide that's happening right now that people are still, oh, safe and effective, safe and effective. Nobody's been held accountable. I mean, people should stop what they're doing. And we need a convoy 2.0. Like, people should get out of their houses and congregate and march to wherever together. Like, this has got to end. And I don't know what it's going to take. I believe it's a spiritual process that you don't really wake up until something has hit you with a Mack truck in your own life, right? Until you got a 2x4 to the head of something like, maybe your 8-year-old turns to you and tells you they're binary. Maybe your 12-year-old tells you that you're a bigot and you're a transphobe. Maybe your 13-year-old secretly goes out and gets vaccinated because all of those messages are being pile drived on them every day at school. And I really wanted to go back to what you said about tech, because a lot of people that are listening are unschoolers or homeschoolers, and I'm about to do a workshop on using tech as a means of connection rather than control, because there's so much hype and fear around it. When your child is in school all day for 6, 7 hours a day away from you, the best hours of the day, the best days of the week, the best years of their life, yeah, you should be concerned about tech if after that 6, 7 hours, you're just leaving them on tech and you're not spending every time. There was a study that said that the average parent spends 7 minutes with their child of present moment time beyond telling them to get their lunch, clean their bathroom, or brush their teeth, get to school, da, da, da. I know that because that was me before 2020 with my little ones. That's how it was. Now, tech is a beautiful thing. Look what we're doing right now. And so I want to make that disclaimer that when your kids are at home with you, you have lots of time to explore tech together. There's not this fear around it because you actually are embedding and spending the time that you need, right? And so, yeah, get off the tech or can deal, get off the tech and reconnect with them. But also when you said find out what they're doing, be your own savior. I love that you say that, participate in your own salvation. Remember that when you talk to your kids, the old, how was your day at school question isn't going to cut it. Like the kids don't know, especially the young ones, what's happening. To say to them, are you hearing about climate change? Has anyone talked to you about sexual orientation, gender ideology? Has anyone talked to you about critical race theory? They're not going to understand what you're saying. But the way that you described earlier, David, with taking that math question and then throwing in, do you think that people should drive all the way to the amusement park? I'll tell you, I've had a teacher reach out to me anonymously and tell me that, and again, a third party scientist came in to speak about climate change and literally told the kids that he, before spring break, canceled his plane tickets to go down to Miami because, he was feeling guilty and that was the right thing to do. This is the subliminal stuff that we have to worry about. This is why I say this is a war zone. This is why I advocate for you to pull your kids out at any cost. Get the grandparents, get the uncles involved, get the community. There's many communities, homeschooling pods. People are coming together. Let's get our children out of this. It's like wanting to clean the fish and tell the fish, clean out the fish, but put the fish back in the dirty tank, right? We have to deal with this tank. We should be pulling the fish out, putting them into some clean water, and then dealing with that tank and that swamp. And then we'll put the fish back in.
Yeah, it's crazy what's happening. And uh, I just wanted to go really quick. I know probably your viewers and listeners might know about this, but I wanted to touch up really quick on the grooming process and what it involves. Because first of all, I'll just put some things in context. A lot of the schools, I'm sure even your school board or the school boards up there, they have these procedures, policies and procedures. And I'll tell you, we have one called AP 1235, and these procedures are often held up by the directors of education. And it says the student's self-identification is the sole measure of their gender. A school shall not disclose a student's gender status to the student's parents without the student's explicit prior consent. Doing so can put a student's well-being and safety at risk, and students have the right to a safe change room that corresponds to their gender identity. So basically what they're doing is, kids can self-identify at school without the parents' knowledge, and boys can go into the girls' washroom, they can play in girls' sports, go into their change room and all of that stuff. And if a child decides to transition at school, it says that, don't talk to the parent because apparently the school knows best. And the director of education over here in Waterloo, G1 Chanika, he even sent out emails, if the students are feeling, sad or something, to reach out to the school and whatnot. He doesn't say reach out to the parents. The first person to contact is the school, all the school's resources and counselors and all that stuff. So the grooming process is basically summarized in 7 steps. One is targeting, where the perpetrator identifies a potential victim and they may choose children who are vulnerable, isolated, or seeking attention and validation. That's exactly what we are seeing in the schools, where there's a lot of vulnerable children, children who don't have good parents, children in foster homes, children who have ideologically captured parents as well, children who have addicts as parents, and these kids need help. And the school is targeting these minors who are vulnerable. Building trust is the second step, and that's the groomer initiates contact with the child, often pretending to be friendly and caring. They may use online platforms, social media, or in-person interactions to establish rapport and gain the child's trust. This is something else that we're seeing with the schools, right? They have online social media presence. As a matter of fact, Waterloo School District School Board literally said that Instagram is will be targeting kids, not communicating to parents, and the stuff that they have on Instagram is complete degeneracy. So, they're pretending to be friendly and caring, right? And we've talked about all of this stuff. The second thing is establishing a connection. So the groomer works to create a close emotional bond with the child. They may provide attention, compliments, and gifts to make the child feel special and valued. This is exactly what the school is being involved in. You got all the clubs as well. You got organizations, third-party organizations coming in, and then they leave stickers for the kids and temporary tattoos for them, to uh, feel complimented and all of these things, right? So they
Free
establish a
pizza.
connection.
Free
Yeah.
pizza. I've heard, at lunch hour and after school for if you're in the club.
Yep. The next step is isolating the child. So the groomer may attempt to create distance between the child and their friends, family, and other protective figures. This isolation makes the child more dependent on the groomer and less likely to disclose the abuse. This is exactly what I've read previously in the procedure, where if a child decides to transition, they're not going to tell the parent, right? You're isolating the child from somebody who can protect them. This is a grooming 101. Desensitization, where the groomer gradually introduces sexual content into their interactions with the child. This can be done through discussions, explicit content, or sharing inappropriate material. The aim is to normalize sexual topics and behavior. I mean, this is education 101. Everything that they're doing is desensitizing kids to these things, right? Then the next thing is testing boundaries, where the groomer may start testing the child's reactions to sexual advantage or suggestive conversations. They may gauge how far they can push the child without encountering resistance or disclosure. This is when they're also involving the different organizations to come in. Essentially, what the school is doing, they're preparing the kids mentally, and then they're bringing in these organizations and they're just washing their hands of any responsibility or accountability, saying, yeah, we didn't do this, these are the other organizations, but the school invites these people to talk to them. The school has days of celebration, you know and the school participates in this. They are fully accountable and fully responsible for what they're doing. And exploitation. So this is the last part of the grooming process, where once the groomer believes the child is emotionally and psychologically conditioned, they may escalate the abuse to involve sexual contact or exploitation. This is I'm going to expand this exploitation to also medical exploitation as
Mhm.
well, which includes medicalizing, sterilizing, mutilating, and all that stuff, as well as financial exploitation, right? Where they take people become dependent financially on the medical industry and all of that. So these are the seven uh, steps that parents can have a look at. I just wanted to lay them out. And I believe that school boards and the education system is involved in child grooming. And if you ask them to provide you with information about what is child grooming, how can I identify it? Can you define it for me? I know that you're probably going to have a hard time because a lot of these places they just they don't have they conveniently don't have the documentation for all of this stuff. And I went to speak with the police as well. And I asked the police, please give me how I can identify this. And they said, we have nothing to give you. And I said, how can you have nothing to give me? And I brought in some reports because I wanted to report it to the police. And the police said, yeah, there's nothing we can do about this. And I said, if there's nothing you can do about this, I want you to take this information that I'm giving you, and I want you to send me an email, and I want you to tell me that there's nothing you can do about it. At least it's on file, but just tell me there's nothing we can do about it. Sorry, David. Right? Then they said, fine, we'll do that. Then I went again to the police station to follow up on this stuff. And I said, can you let me know what happened to these reports? Right? And they have rotating officers at the front and taking information. It's like, who did you speak to? I'm looking at your file. There's nothing on your file. Right? So what the police does in this, at least the Waterloo Regional Police, they're becoming complacent to the complaints that are being put in, right? And if you ask the police, have you received any complaints about the school board and stuff? But well, we haven't received anything. And the reason why they don't receive anything or why they could say that is because when people come and complain, they take those complaints straight to the trash bin, right? And then they say, well, we don't receive any complaints. There's nothing we can do. And you come back and it's like, yeah, we have nothing on file, right? And this is how the police becomes complicit.
Complicit. So you went and they actually said, we don't have anything on file from you?
That's correct. And I wouldn't leave
Unbelievable.
yes, and I wouldn't leave the police station until I got information on child grooming, right? And the officer reluctantly gave me this pamphlet about online child grooming, and I looked at it and I said, "This online child grooming that you're giving me information, this is exactly what's happening in real life." He's like, "Yeah, I don't know. There's nothing we can do."
Mind
And
control.
this is exactly how the police behaves when it comes to this stuff. And the police, they're woke at this point,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you could see the police when the pride parades are happening, when men with their dongs out are walking the streets, the police is right there with them, protecting these people, from their public uh, showing off their genitals, right? This is the kind of stuff that the police is busy doing
Hmm.
nowadays, right? They're protecting people who are targeting children sexually. And when it comes to complaints of this is communism 101, socialism 101, right? They just pretend like nothing's happening, right? And if readers want to know more about this, read the Gulag Archipelago, right? Because you go in and when it comes to talking about something, they just pretend. They conveniently lose documentation. They conveniently forget, right? It's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, this is not happening, right? This is what happens in a communist society, right? And it escalates from there as well. Like I'm reading a book with Richard Wolbrand, who was a Christian pastor in Romania. He was Jewish, and I'm at the part where he got taken right off the street into custody of the police, and they put him in a cell underneath the police building over there. And his wife goes and she asks him, "Does anybody know where Richard is?" And he's like, "Yeah, we don't have that name. We heard he left the country." Right. Meanwhile, he's in the cell below. Right. And they even changed his name. That way nobody can identify him. Right. Your name right now will be this, right? And then it's like, this is how the police behaves. And this is exactly what I'm seeing the police behaving now because they're not accountable. They're not helping with this situation and they just dismiss complaints. And people need to be aware of that. And I encourage people to do the same thing. If you don't believe me, do the same thing. Because before I went to the police station, I called and I clicked every single extension and nobody picked up the phone. So then I went in person and I called all their extensions because they have the non-emergency number has different extensions for different needs. I called all their extensions and nobody picked up the phone, right? And this is
It's
the kind of police
unbelievable.
that we're dealing with. Yep,
Well, I mean, the police are there to serve the government. Our government has been seized. We are under communist rule right now. We're just waking up to it. I mean, the fact that the legislation has already been passed between both parties. We have a uniparty here in Canada between the Liberals and the Conservatives who passed through Bill C-11, which not only doesn't allows, like prohibits any mental health professional, clergyman, or psychiatrist to help a child through a confusing time if they thought that they wanted to, chemically castrate themselves and change genders. as a parent, you're not even allowed to leave the country with your own child and seek help. You can go to jail and be fined. So not one person in parliament spoke up against this, taking away these parental rights. So we've got all this stuff going in the school. We've got the police who are protecting the government, and they're all working in unison against us. The triad, the sacred triad that used to be between parent, child, and teacher is no longer. The parents have become the enemy, that the teachers at the top are being told, and the administrators and the school trustees, that it is the parent that is the enemy now, and they are to be removed from the triad. And we need to save these children, and we need to protect these children. And we're dealing with mind control. We're dealing with paycheck mind control. The fact that these police, I mean, anyone who was really great is gone by now because of COVID. I mean, that's what they want to do in the healthcare system. They want mindless monkeys working in there. They don't want anyone who stood up to the vax mandates. That's why they're not being rehired. Bonnie Henry wants all of these, mindless order takers and followers. And it's the same thing in the police. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, this diversity and equity inclusion is a great way to not hire based on the best performer or good practices. We can manipulate now who we want to work for us, right? And so the force continues to protect. I mean, when you really look at it and you go really deep down, it's like we have this pedophilic network of high leadership that is running the world, and we have all these systems in place that are protecting them. I mean, that's what it seems like. I mean, I know that sounds absurd if someone's just listening to this or just waking up, but the more you research this, the more you see it. What do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to think it was absurd. I used to think that it was a tall order, but the more I look into this stuff, and that I just put out the same videos and I just repeat what they say. I just repeat it out loud. And I just show you exactly what they have, right? And they're having a hard time with me because I'm just telling you, why are you doing this? Why are you saying these things? And I really do believe these behaviors are pedophilic in nature, right? And I really do believe I it's hard for me actually to believe that we live in a world in which these things are acceptable, and people can just talk about, sexualizing kids and stuff just openly and be proud of it. But this is the kind of world that we live in, and yeah, everybody needs to participate in their own rescue, and people need to put an end to this because the government at this point, they can't be trusted, and it is, I believe, we are heading into communism right now, and people, they're being promised a utopia right now, they're being promised money and everybody's we have your health interests in mind and all of this stuff. They're being promised a world in which they're never going to get it because communism 101 has equity at its center. And what is equity versus equality? Well, I'll give you an example because I ride bikes competitively. A race of equality means that everybody shows up and everybody has an equal opportunity to win the race, right? And there's only one winner. And the opportunity is there, and you got to train and you got to work hard and you got to be psychologically prepared and know tactics to win. And there's only one winner. A race of equality means that it doesn't matter how hard you train. If another person shows up who didn't train as hard, you're either riding with your brakes on so they can keep up, or they're getting a boost somehow on their bicycle so they can keep up with you, right? And everybody finishes the same, and this is equality,
That's
right?
the race of equity,
That
correct?
yes, yeah, sorry, that's equity.
That's
Yeah.
equity.
So it doesn't matter how much you train for these races. And then from a from a perspective of somebody who trains, right? Why would I train any harder if the results are all the same? So as you can see, this concept is applied to communism, right? Where everybody's the same, right? So any top performer, why would they perform any more if what they're doing is being taken away from them, right? Why would they put in any extra work if the results are going to be equal. And this is exactly what communism did to business owners, to landowners in Romania. Anybody who had anything extra, anybody who had determination and drive to do something in life, all of that stuff was seized and taken away. This is exactly what we're seeing nowadays. Things are not based on merit anymore. Things are based on diversity, inclusion, and equity. And this is not diversity of thought, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Mm-hmm.
diversity of skin color. And they
Mm-hmm.
literally hire people to meet a skin color quota,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if that's not racist, I just if hiring people based on immutable attributes such as skin color is not racism 101, I don't know what is, right? And this is all very ironic, right? This is these people who say you're racist, you're phobic, you're all of these in the most ironic way. This is exactly what they are. They project all of these things onto everybody else, and they are that. They are racist, they are sexist, they think in sexual stereotypes, right? They want to
Mm-hmm.
compartmentalize everybody, they want to label everybody, right? You are this, you are this, you are this, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly how they think. And yeah, I think the government and all the institutions and our if people who are listening don't believe me, go do this yourself. Reach out to family and health services and ask them about the school board and the books. Reach out to your school if you don't believe me and see how they deal with the situation. Reach out to the police
100%.
and see how useful they are. Reach out to literally anybody. We have the ombudsman here in Ontario. The ombudsmen are completely useless. And the ombudsmen are supposed to be that third party person that holds people accountable. They are completely useless,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And just interact with any of these people. And that's why I say to parents, it's up to us to protect our children.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go.
Amen.
These people in leadership need to be taken out of leadership, removed from those positions because these people, I mean, these people are literally a threat to your child's well-being. They have no problem, zero moral intuition, zero integrity. They have no problem helping transition your child and medicating them and having sexual discussions about their preferred behavior and showing them books and grooming them. Zero problem.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem they have is they can't do it fast enough because you're in the way. That's the only problem that they have.
100%. I always say that we're the last standing. We're standing in the gap between a real evil consciousness and our children. And yeah, I really want to commend you for the work that you're doing and speaking out because it really requires strong men to support women to make these decisions to pull them out, and I want to encourage the dads, it's time to wake up. It's time to take your place. It's time to get off of the hockey games, the football games, get out of the coffee shops, get out of the pubs. It's time to take a look at what's going on in this country and stand in the gap for your kids because if this continues on, none of us are safe. I mean, people are in la la land right now thinking they're okay right now. They're okay right now. They just keep sedating themselves and watching TV, Netflix, and chill. And meanwhile, our government has completely seized like every institution, everything, and they're taking over this ideology. And pretty soon we'll be exactly like Romania if we don't stand. And that's happening all over Europe. And of course, that information is being censored from us too. There's hundreds of thousands of people that are standing against the government, what they're trying to do to the farmers, which eventually that's all coming here. So it starts with the kids. I so appreciate the work that you're doing. Now, I love that you spoke about the 7 steps of grooming. Can people just find that online, or what was that pamphlet that the police actually gave to you?
So the 7 steps of grooming wasn't from the police pamphlet. This
Okay,
is this is something that I've
just online.
researched as well, and I just show. Yeah,
Perfect.
I just show people
Perfect.
exactly what it is. And I have made videos about the grooming process, and I've also spoken at the school board about the
Hmm.
7 steps. You can check out my October 16th delegation on my
Okay.
YouTube channel. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Rumble. It's called Beyond the Rift. You can also
Perfect.
Google Father David Todor as well. And you can get informed because everything that I'm talking about, this is applicable all over Canada. right now. And the things that you're hearing, the things that parents are hearing, just go and ask your school board, and I'm sure you'll find the same things and the same resistance because the school board right now, they're trying to educate leadership on how to dismiss your concern. And, they're spinning that as like, we're just educating parents, and really what they're just dismissing parental concerns.
100%. Well, we'll have all of that information in the show notes so that parents can reach out to you directly and maybe they felt inspired. I hope that they did. I sure do. And if your kids are still in the system, you need to coalesce and you need to unite with people like David. You need to come together. And if you feel that this is a path that you need to take, learn and take, some lessons from his book on how to approach these school boards and what to say. So thank you so much, David, for taking the time to speak with us. I'll give you the last word if there's anything that you want to say to somebody who's just kind of coming under the rock they've been living under.
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to thank you and your entire audience, for speaking up and doing this work. To anybody listening, these are your kids. You don't need to be afraid. You're the one accountable for them. You're the one that goes to work to feed your kids. There's no uh there's no debating with these people. You don't debate. You go there and you got to tell them what to do because these people, they don't know what to do. These people don't know the difference between men and women. These people are lost right at the basics and they're ideologically captured. And it's okay to go in there and you got to be firm with these people. These people are degenerates. These people have no problems defying parents and standing against you and taking your kids. And you got to be firm and you got to be courageous. And the more parents that stand up, they're not going to be able. This is a war that they cannot win. And I highly, highly encourage all the parents to just keep doing good work. Either take your kids out of school or pay close attention. You got to email, you got to go to your school board meetings. And most importantly, you got to spend time with your family, get your kids off the screens and participate in their lives and just pour good information into their minds because if you're not doing it, somebody else will gladly do it for you. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Tasha, once again for having me.
Amen. Thank you, David. We will connect with you very soon. Thank you so much for your time.